On this episode, we have a special guest, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Bianco is a good friend of mine, and I'm just happy to introduce him. A really high-level coach. I think sometimes, you know, we think of high-level coaches, just the people you see on TV, but this guy's as good as it gets.
Sure way.
Yeah, Coach Bianco is somebody that I look up to in the space, so it was great to learn from him and get some nuggets of knowledge from him.
Deep.
Yeah, this A+ episode. Let's roll it.
Yeah, same. Let's go to the show. I ain't gonna talk anymore later. All right, Coach's Clinic Podcast. I'm your boy, Corey G. Coach Mike Deegan, Tyler Treadway, Coach Myers over there. We got a special guest.
Brandon Bianco, the head men's soccer coach at Denison University. Welcome to the show, man.
Yeah.
What's up, fellas?
Hey, Brandon said he's been listening to the show, so thanks. There's one listener.
That's right.
But have you left us a review on iTunes?
Hey!
Oh, I got to do that.
There you
Got to
go.
do that.
Give us a little background, Brandon. Tell us about yourself, buddy.
Yeah. Started at Denison in April of 2020, so as the world was kind of shutting down, we were moving a family from Cleveland, Ohio. I was working at Case Western Reserve University, where I was a head coach for 7 years. And it's really been a good transition. I mean, when you come to a place like Denison, you're in really a tight-knit community, and you can build a special program. And I think that's the work we're trying to do, certainly. But I grew up here in Central Ohio. As I try to tell people from the area, you know, I went to Olentangy High School when it was all one school in a small farming community. But now it's exploded, and anything else. I'm a coach's kid. My dad was the head coach at Ohio State University for a number of years, then got out of coaching in college and was doing a lot of kind of club stuff for a long time, but always around the game, and then was fortunate enough to play at Ohio Wesleyan University, so not too far from home. And, you know, it's kind of funny. Like, I was thinking about this on the way in. Ohio is really unique in the sense, like, if you want one of the premier football programs in the country, you have Mount Union. If you want one of the premier basketball programs in the country, you have historically – Marietta now, but like certainly Wittenberg is, I think, the winningest in Division III. Worcester's had a good run in basketball. Soccer, you have Ohio Wesleyan. I mean, you just have these, like, it doesn't matter what sport you're in, like you have something that's really
D3
close.
powerhouse.
Some blue bloods. Yeah.
Blue bloods for sure. And Ohio Wesleyan was that for me. You know, I think we lost 8 games in 4 years as a player and number 1 in the country for a season and Final Four in 2006 when I was a senior, and then I went kind of right into the coaching side. And, you know, I wish in some ways I had the experience later in my career where I would have appreciated it more. But, like, in the 5 years we were there, it was, you know, 5 straight conference championships, 5 NCAA tournaments, 3 Sweet 16s, 2 Elite Eights, a Final Four, and a national championship. And you just kind of thought, like,
That's normal.
that's what it is.
It's easy. This is what we do.
I just go into coaching. We just do this whole thing.
And then I became a head coach at a place that was completely different, and I think we lost more games in one season than I did in 5 years. And you're just like,
Punch in the face.
And you got to figure it out. And it was a great experience. But now, you know, I'm here and working with this knucklehead and some others and having a good time.
I want to turn it back to being a coach's kid, man.
Yeah.
Like, how is that? Because not only just but a D1, obviously high performing coach. Like, what's that like growing up? Are you always getting coached? That people ask this about with my kids, like with lifting, right? It's kind of the same thing. So go ahead.
Yeah, my experience was a little bit different because my memories of my dad at Ohio State were pictures my mom would show us, because he stopped in 86. I was born in 84, but then he was always around the game. And, you know, it didn't matter where we went. We'd go to a crew game, or we'd go to, you know, a soccer tournament or vacation, and we're walking on the beach, and, like, somebody knows my dad, you know. And and that when you're younger, you're kind of like, this is annoying. You can't go anywhere. I'm sure you guys all experience it in your own networks where you go somewhere and somebody knows you from wrestling or whatever it is. And so that was –
Yeah, your kids definitely don't think it's cool. You know?
Exactly.
So funny.
So there was that piece. There was the piece of, you know, he was still really busy with coaching, like club stuff. So he maybe wasn't at a lot of my stuff because he coached my older sister primarily. But then when he was there, it was, you know, here's kind of the laundry list of things you need to be thinking about and working on. But it was all good intentions, but certainly we had to kind of find what our rhythm was of, how that feedback was processed and all that kind of stuff. But it's, if nothing else, it sparked my passion for what I'm doing. If he wasn't in my life, I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't have kind of the mentorship that I had from him. I mean, and it still hasn't ended. I mean, he drove to Capitol last night for our game and has given me his 2 cents.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Good.
Just now as a coach, do you guys chop it up after the game? Is he critical in that nature, or is he backed off?
I mean, there was, I think, a time last year where he said, "Hey, you can always ask me what I think."
That's funny.
And I was like, "No, I'm good."
Like, yeah, I'm not. That's by design. I'm not asking on purpose.
Yeah, and
That's
it's all
hilarious.
It's all good intention, and like he's got good ideas, but I mean, I think as you guys all know, like you wake up, the first thing you think about is like what's going on with your team or whatever. Yeah. And you go to bed thinking the same things, and at times, like, it's not even him, but even my wife, even though she doesn't know anything about soccer, but I just appreciate like being able to disconnect at a moment, and usually he catches me at the moments I'm ready to disconnect.
Yeah.
And so, but it's also nice, like there's blind spots that I have that he sees, and so it's really great. But as I said, like the biggest thing is, the example he provided was sparking my passion for sure.
I hope I can be that for my kid the same way. Go ahead, D.
Yeah, so let me ask you this, with your dad being, a high-level coach, but initially, like, in the probably late 70s, early 80s, it was decades ago now. I'm going to give you kind of an example from wrestling. One of my best friends growing up was a great wrestler in high school. Then he wrestled Greco for the U.S. Army national team, then was out of the sport for 20 years. Now he just kind of took over the program at our old high school, and the first thing he realized is like it's not the same sport as it was in the 90s.
Shout out Luke.
Shout out to Luke Spencer. But just the way kids wrestle now is so different. The scrambles, even the moves that he was doing in the mid 90s and dominating people don't even do anymore.
Yeah.
So how much do you think the game has changed? The game of soccer has changed since your dad was a high level coach and now with you as a high level coach. So is there maybe even kind of a disconnect with like the way you coach the game and the way the athletes operate versus the early 80s at Ohio State?
Yeah, that's 100% part of it. And actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I think about that a lot. I mean, and to be fair, like he knows his stuff. Like he was part of, they do soccer licensing, as Luke probably knows. Like he was part of the first cohort that got their A license, which is the highest badge you can get from U.S. Soccer. And so he certainly knows his stuff. But if you're not in it, continually and on kind of the new trends of where the game is and how you train and what you train and everything else.
And the nuances of your program,
and the
right?
nuances of your program and your kids and the institution and the fit. It's, it's easy to kind of to lose kind of what the new trends are. I mean, for example, I just in the 20 years since I played, when I was in college, we did 3 sessions in a day. We did a morning, we did like a morning fitness, an afternoon technical session, and then at 6 p.m. you came back and you kicked the shit out of each other in an 11-a-side scrimmage. That would never happen today. Like we went once a day in our preseason. And if we gone twice, like I think our kids' legs would have fallen off. You know what I mean? And so the
administration would be out there with heart rate monitors, checking everything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and this is
crazy.
This is something funny, not just different too. But when like now we at Marietta, the first day on campus, you would run 60-yard dashes and throw as far as you can and throw as hard as you can. Now, and then the first scrimmage, guys would go get on the mound and they would have 7 innings, like just go pitch.
Yeah.
Now, like we're like, all right, we should give them probably 2 or 3 weeks, make sure their hamstrings are right to sprint.
Yeah.
Make sure their arms are in decent enough shape to go 1 inning or 2 innings. Anyway, so there's just one, we know more now. Like one, like so let's not all just softness.
Yeah.
One,
No.
And then 2, I was thinking, I was just kind of joking with our guys the other day. I said, how much do you guys sprint ever? Like do you ever just run? And they don't, right? So anyways, I think what you're saying is, one, there's a better way to train now. And then 2, you have to answer the bells of the fitness level and conditioning and experience of the kids today.
You do. But also, I mean, we also can't lose some of that we had. Like
Right.
we get our kids in August, on August 19th. We have to play in 13 days or whatever it is, 12 days. Mm-hmm. And then you're playing 17 games, 18 games in 57 days. Like, if your kids aren't ready to answer the bell, if you're not ready to like stretch them a little bit physically, then you're doing your kids a disservice. So I think there is kind of this tug and push and pull a little bit where you have to be mindful of it, and you can't necessarily overtrain them, but you also have to get them ready for the rigors of this baseball season, football, whatever it is. And, you know, but yeah, to your point, Dustin, I guess, and to wrap that piece up, like, if you're not on it every day, and like we do this every day, like, you're on Twitter, you see stuff, you see resources that are coming out, and you're always kind of evolving, or at least I hope you try to. And so if you've disconnected for 20 years, you'll have that shock moment where you're like, oh, wow, yeah.
Do I really know what's going on?
Exactly.
Well, you know what's good there, just off of that, just for me in general, like I'm very cautious on the advice I give to anybody because of that. Even like youth coaches or high school coaches, it's a different game than what.
Right.
So, you know, sometimes maybe I'm a college coach and someone may ask for my feedback, and the context is everything.
It is.
So before you start shooting advice off on here's what I would do. Because I've been disconnected from that part of the game, it's a different game than the college game. I'm hesitant on the advice I give at times as well, because I think I know that it may have passed me by in certain ways in that demographic. So anyways, I think it's good for us to consider that as well as we get older, to not just shoot off and spout off advice to some people, knowing that it may be a little different in their world.
Well, I still hate the trap bar over a regular deadlift bar. That's the one they ain't passed me by.
I will never buy into the trap. I actually had a wrestling parent ask about that last night. They'd went to a club up at actually it was one of the old Tangy schools, might have been Orange or. But anyway, they went there for like a practice the other night, and they saw their team lifting, doing their preseason lift. They're like, hey, so what is this deadlift they do where they stand in the middle of the bar? And I was like, that's, you know, the trap bar, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you know, it's a little bit more of a squat than a true deadlift. And the mom was like, she's like, yeah, it looks kind of easier. And they were basically, it's the mom of Savannah, the female wrestler I have. It's really good. She was like, yeah, the coach was saying they have a girl that can deadlift 300 pounds, but I just watched her, and it didn't look like she really could. I'm like, yeah, you put her on a straight bar, she can't deadlift 300 pounds. She'd be lucky to do half that.
But that's one of those things that's become a norm in our space because it's easier. The reality is it's easier for a coach to manage it.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's better for the athlete, but maybe if you can't manage 100 guys form right, than that. But like for here, we do own one, but we don't ever use it.
Yeah, I'll use it with kids who aren't really ready for the straight bar yet,
Yeah.
you know, but once they kind of form-wise graduate up to it. I mean, even with Jack, I took him straight from the kettlebells to the straight bar once he could hinge. Same thing with Andon, you know.
Yeah.
So they were able to kind of skip over that. So I guess maybe it's one of those things. It's not necessarily inherently good or bad, but it's something that's really, you know, kind of come into favor. I think people love it because they can do more weight on it.
Yeah,
and so they feel like it's easier.
It looks better. Right? Yeah.
So that's my version of that. Like the kid said, you know, somebody comes, whoa, my kid's doing this deadlift, and I'm like, but you don't know that they have the right instruction either. So that's kind of your point.
Yeah, the answer is maybe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, here, no,
They're not
going to do
it.
But I don't know that environment, so maybe it's the best thing they have. But I probably disagree with
Yeah, exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
Treadway.
Yeah, so
Our resident soccer coach.
putting Bianco and myself in the same like soccer coach conversation is like putting myself and like LeBron in the same the same Hooper conversation.
I mean,
like,
you
not
have
even
more
close.
tenure on the Coaches Clinic
Yeah,
podcast.
exactly.
I'm just-
Treadway, come on.
Stick your chest out.
But yeah, so when you were playing in college, so to explain to the listeners, because Bianco talked about OWU being like a powerhouse, but Denison is also like a prestigious school in the soccer community. Like when people see them on the schedule, they're like, yep, that's a loss. Like they see it. It's a great school. What he's building is awesome. So what are some of the things that you took from when you were winning championships or playing for championships, both coaching as a player at Ohio Wesleyan? What are you kind of bringing to your team at Denison? Some of those disciplines or a couple things that you know, hey, these work really well. I'm going to try and duplicate these with my current team. Yeah,
that's a good question. And I think, you know, every coach, when you're in a leadership position, you're trying to draw on the experiences that you had previously to set whatever culture or environment that you're looking for. I mean, the thing that Ohio Wesleyan is pretty clear. Like, there isn't anything super like tactical that's unique that they're doing that nobody else is doing. It's really just there is really high standards. I mean, when you walk in the door, and it's this way in big time programs, I think, and Marietta's certainly similar. You don't need to be told that like there's a certain expectation for success. Like that the moment you walk in, and for some guys they crave it and they love it, and that's why they go there and they can thrive in that environment. For other guys they can't. But it doesn't change the fact that the standard and the expectation is incredibly high. So certainly that's one thing, like very clear standards, whatever environment you're in. The context of it, like what that looks like, is going to be different, but being really clear and having a high standard I think is really important. The other thing is I think just the overall environment that you're trying to create, and that's hard to put your finger on. But for me, like after doing this for 15 years and being in college soccer for 19 or whatever it is, like I know if our guys have the life and the energy that they need to kind of get through the grind of a college season, and that's really important. And so I think people throw out culture. I've always defined culture by the habits and behaviors that a program has. I'm not a rule person. Like I'm not going to give our guys 2 pages and like X, Y, and Z you can't do, sign it at the bottom and date it. Like I think that's BS. Our kids aren't going to go off into the real world and get that. They are going to want a high standard to be held to and be held accountable. And those things, more than anything else, are what I took. And within the environment, like each place is different. At Ohio Wesleyan, for example, there's an old gym. At noon every day, the academic day is paused from noon to 1 o'clock every single day. And at noon every single day, the soccer guys go up and play in this old crappy gym for an hour, and they just compete. No rules. You figure it out. You fight. You battle. And you do that every single day for 6 months out of the year. So it was really unique in that environment because you had that built-in thing. When I went to Case Western Reserve University, which is an uber academic, STEM, urban place, like we couldn't do that. So we had to kind of create our own environment. In Denison, we're doing the same. But the biggest thing is, I think, hopefully you're breathing in some life to the program. You're giving them some vision. I mean, I shared a podcast with Coach, or maybe you shared it with me. I can't remember. But
you get the credit. It was you.
Was it?
Yeah.
But one of my players shared it with me because I think it kind of hit on the tenets of the things we always talk about. But it was from Greg Carville at UMass Hockey, and this guy took over a doormat 2-3 years later, turned him into a national championship team. And his big thing was clarity of vision, high standards, accountability. I mean, but for if nothing else, I think it's our responsibility to come in and be very, very clear about who are we, what are we about, and where are we going, and create buy-in and unity. And certainly we've tried to do that. And it wasn't easy. As I said to you guys when I came in, I got the job and it was a pandemic, and I thought I'd come in and coach the spring season, and then the kids never came back to campus. And not to say that we're a finished product yet, because we're certainly not, and we have a long way to go, and we're just trying to catch up with what Coach Deegan and others on campus have been doing. But what I hope is that the guys have kind of a belief in who we are and what we're about, and that kind of sets the habits and behaviors that we think are important for us to have.
Yeah. I like that gritty thing you explained about, like in the gym, 12-1. That doesn't sound like some soccer shit I ever heard before.
No, it's essentially 5-on-5.
Yeah.
Like it's a basketball gym, and
I like it.
You have some general rules, and like you just play. Winners stay on, losers are done. And then if you have a ton of kids,
it's like street ball, basically.
It is, and you might not get on for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Because somebody else is winning, and but again, like that was so unique to that institution, and so I think just kind of tailoring what you're about to the uniqueness of your environment is really important. Like we can't do that at Denison. Like we don't have the same space.
Yeah.
Academic day.
But there's got to be a version of that. Like that's.
But we
what
can do something.
Yeah.
We can do something.
I think that, it's an interesting nugget because there was the Marietta baseball tradition is long, and guys went on to coach, and I would say in general a lot of coaches have struggled after Marietta at their other institutions, right, because they're trying to create something that's at Marietta.
Bingo.
That's not.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to fit whatever it is. They're trying to
square peg round hole.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do because they're like, all right, this worked at Marietta. I've seen it work. It wins. Blah 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 blah. I'm going to do it at XYZ school. but that's not. Yeah, it doesn't work in that environment. And I see that a lot. Marietta guys struggle because you hang on to what you did there, and it's not necessarily going to work where you are.
Yeah, I think the natural piece is to go wherever you go, and I'm going to be Marietta baseball at X, Y, and Z school. And like Indiana soccer, for example, is the blue blood for Division I soccer, certainly one of them. And they've had some assistants that have gone on and haven't always done super well. And one right now at Ohio State, Brian Mazanoff, who's a great coach, played in the national team, played for the Crew, and they're top 25 now, but it's taken them 5 years. And this is my speculation. I think they come in and you try to replicate, well, this is what we did at X, Y, and Z school. And it might take you a few years to realize, like, yeah, we got to do things a little bit different that are unique to where we are.
Mm-hmm. It's like the Bill Belichick. There's a lot of his assistants haven't been great. I'm curious. You came from OWU, and there's an unbelievable coaching tree there, including one of your mentors, who's the head coach at Pitt.
Yep.
Took Pitt from a doormat program to a Final Four last year. A great mentor of yours. With your dad coaching at Ohio State, with having peers at higher level schools, right, Division I, Power 5. Why did you never go that route? And I say that, guys, because when I met Coach Bianco on his interview, I told the committee, I said, that guy will win a national championship here. He's that good. You could feel it. I don't know much, but I know when I see greatness, and I saw it that day. But my point is, why didn't you go on that path? Or is that a path that maybe you're interested at some point?
Yeah, I certainly always aspired to. So 2011, we won a national championship at Ohio Wesleyan. In spring of 2012, I was offered the recruiting coordinator and first assistant position at Denison University down in the Charlotte area, which incredible place. I mean, Seth Curry. I mean, you go down, it's beautiful. It's Pleasantville. You're right on Lake Norman. And I remember this clear as day because I was married a couple years now, and at the day that I got the call was the same day we put an offer on our first house. Mm-hmm. And I was actually in Florida helping with the Ohio Wesleyan women's lacrosse spring break trip because I was over 25. The head coach wasn't. I'm driving vans for the team, and it was bananas.
D3 Alley, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm warming up the goalies and then shooting over to a sports bar to watch March Madness or something. But, yeah, anyways, I step off a plane, drive to Charlotte with my wife, spend a day and a half on campus, and I'm watching them. They played a spring game against University of South Carolina, and the coach at the time asked me after the game, he goes, how would your team do against these two teams? And I'm like, I don't want to come off as a dick here, but we'd beat both teams probably 2-0. I mean, we were a national championship team, good program at the time. And so I reflected back as I'm driving home, and I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me was it didn't necessarily matter what the level was if I felt like the environment matched kind of my ambition that I had and kind of the commitment. And at the time, that program wasn't the right fit. Mm-hmm. It was set up at that level in Division I. It's all about resources and setup. And they had no support with admissions at a high academic place, and they had fewer than 2 scholarships at the time. And you're in ACC blue blood country. You're competing against them, in your non-conference and even in your league. Like, it just wasn't set up to be sustainably successful. And I didn't want to just uproot my family and all these things to go somewhere that didn't really match what I felt I wanted to do. But nonetheless, so I guess to bring it full circle, I think ultimately my ambition has always been not necessarily division as much as can we create an environment that is as high performing as the Division I place or whatever. And I think it's our responsibility to kind of create that environment as well as give our players the resources to be successful. And thankfully we're at a place at Denison where the institution is really healthy. Like, we don't have to worry about keeping, thankfully, 50 kids on a soccer team and keep them happy to keep the doors open at the college. So we have different challenges, but it's a place where I think we can really do some special things in our respective programs. We all have our challenges, certainly, but anyways, I guess that's where my focus has always been, to try to create that environment that I think is as good, if not better, than others.
D.
So when you look at, elite programs at any level, I mean, a lot of times it boils down to who's getting the best players, who's getting the best athletes. I mean, you look at Alabama football, Ohio State football. Why are they good every year? I mean, they got great coaches, they got great resources, they got boosters with tons of money, whatever. But a lot of it comes down to, are you getting the best players every year?
You look at the recruiting rankings, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
It's pretty easy to see.
It's the same thing in wrestling, too. Why is Penn State real good? Well, they get the kids that have been on the world team since they were 15.
Yeah.
Ohio State's getting kids that they've been winning their whole life. How much do you think that is true, at the, D2, D3 level or whatever? Because obviously you want to get the best players, the best athletes, but the ones who are the absolute cream of the crop are going to maybe Indiana or somewhere that is the D1 blue blood. So how much do you think, at that level, winning comes into who's getting the best players or who's able to develop the players that are good and turn them into great players?
You got to be able to do both. I mean, certainly at our level, and even in Division I, but certainly at our level, you're going to get all-state, all-American type kids that are very good players. But you also need to get the kids that maybe have been a little bit overlooked that can
maybe they
develop.
don't have quite the measurables to make it to D1 or whatever, but they're still great players.
Yeah, and baseball and football are a little bit unique in this, but it's across the board in a lot of other sports in Division III. The teams that are uber successful, I think I looked at it last year maybe. So 80% of the Final Four teams in men's and women's soccer, as an example, over the last 5 years have either been top 50 academic schools, so high academic, or Christian. So that tells me, like a Messiah, a Wheaton College, Calvin College in Michigan. And so that tells me, as I looked at it kind of at a macro level, and that's true across other sports as well, you have to have a niche. You either have to be high academic or you have to have something that's attracting those kids. So like Messiah Soccer as an example, and this is a small school in central Pennsylvania, have won 8 national championships, blue blood, big time. Well, they're getting kids that want a high-performing soccer environment in a Christian institution. Well, they're going to get kids that probably could play at mid-majors or even high majors that want that environment. And that's the same with kids that are going to go to University of Chicago and Johns Hopkins and some of these high academic places. I mean, Chicago, who was in the league I was previously in, I mean, they're the third best school in the world. And so for a kid that wants that environment, and they're choosing between, whatever it is, Brown, Princeton, University of Chicago, they can go toe-to-toe with those kids. And so you get a couple of those every year in your program, and certainly that changes things. I mean, thankfully at Denison, we can be in the conversation with a lot of Patriot League, mid-major type places. And so I think you got to get those kids every year. I mean, if we're going to be sustainably good, we got to get a couple of those kids every year. And so it is, I mean, I am not the best coach. I don't think anybody is that claims that they are, so I think we can create a decent environment, but we also need good kids at the end of the day. And I hope that our work and our tireless work with our staff is just turning over some rocks and being where we need to be and being on top of kids and using social media and doing what we need to do to get those kids.
One of the things you said earlier, I'm going to swing back. You said that some kids crave the environment. And I thought about something that kind of just came to mind. It's like crave or crumble. I see it here all the time with guys that's come through. Treadway can attest to this, right? Dustin breaks motherfuckers all the time too, all the cardio stuff. But it's like one of those things where, especially when the weights start getting big and when the call time's 4 a.m., you either embrace that and you crave it, or I watch you crumble.
Dude, you're so right.
So my question to you is, though, and if we swing back to that 5-on-5, that's what I think can get a kid to crave it, potentially. So can you take, or is it only crave, is it just inside? Can you take it from a crumble-ish, maybe it's a little crumbly, and take it to the crave with certain things, in your opinion? I always craved it.
Yeah.
That's just me, but I don't know. And that comes back to, Mike said a long time ago, not everybody's labeled soft.
Right.
They might be soft right now, but they're not destined to maybe be soft their whole life. Some motherfuckers are just soft.
Right.
But you know what I mean? But so what's your opinion on that? I think that was a great question, by the way. I'm just saying. I'm just deeming that. Go ahead.
I would say if we could come up with the secret sauce to make that in a kid, then that's what every coach is buying off the shelves every day of the week. And certainly, I would say, I mean, I think all of our work is to try to create an environment where kids are performing at a level that they don't even think they can perform at, and get tougher and get more resilient and all those things. But ultimately, we provide that environment to the best of our abilities, and some guys are going to do it and some guys aren't. And I would say the mistake that I made as I was first starting out in coaching was, I just labeled guys, oh, he's soft, he can't do it. And then, I don't know, maybe kids change me. I don't know. But ultimately, kids can do it. You just have to tailor it to certain people. And everybody's why is different. There's a workshop I've done with different teams where you define it. And they always fall into essentially three buckets. There's kind of the internal why. I want to be an All-American. I want to hit 50 home runs. I want to do X, Y, or Z. And all those things are great. If a guy's hitting, they're not going to hit 50 in a season, but if they're hitting 15, your team's going to be pretty darn good. Mm-hmm. But it's very intrinsic. There's the external bucket, which is just, I want to win. I want to be competitive. I want to raise a trophy. That will always come up. And then there's the third bucket, which is sometimes hard. It was hard for me to identify with those kids all the time, but it doesn't change the fact that that's where they're at, and it's the social. You see it especially on the women's side, where their identity is wrapped up in the relationships that they have with their teammates, and that's why they compete. But at the end of the day, you're trying to create an environment where each of those people, whatever their why is still helping them get tougher, get more resilient, to help them be more competitive, to help them try to be better than they think they can be. I'm going on a tangent here, but ultimately,
I think the explanation of those buckets is really valuable, bro.
They fall into one of those three typically when you've done it. But I would say 7 years ago, I would have said they're soft. And now, and some of the grad work that I did when I was in school, but I'm trying to tailor the coaching to what that might be, because they're not soft. You just need to try to hit them a little bit. And some will respond well, some won't. But to your point, if you go to a camp, for example, maybe wrestling's the same. You go to these camps, and soccer's got all kinds of problems at the youth level, but one of them is these kids pay way too much money to go to these big exposure camps, and then some guy gets up in front of them, who wants to be a college soccer player? Everybody raises their hand. And then they come to your campus, and you go for an away weekend like we had 2 weekends ago to Boston. We left it Thursday at 11 a.m. They're gone. They're missing class. They're away from their friends the first weekend of college, and they want to be with their buddies and party and do all these things. And they're gone till Sunday at 11 o'clock at night. And for some guys, they're freshmen. They're sophomores. They're bench guys. They might not play a minute in the 4 days that we're gone.
They start rethinking this
and
college
like,
athlete thing.
Do I really want to do this?
How much do I love soccer right now?
And it's like, but the guys that are like, hey, on Monday morning at 8 a.m., I'm going to class, and at 4 o'clock, I'm coming out and I'm training my tail off. Those are the guys that make it.
Yeah. You know what? I'm sorry. I think what we're talking about, we're all in a fight right now. I'm talking to people in business about this. It's talent acquisition and development. Yeah. There's a shortage of really good talent right now. So we're all trying to attract really good talent, and then it becomes how you develop them. And just this week, we lost 2 pretty good recruits to competitors. And some of it is because of the way we approach it. And it hurts a little bit when you lose somebody. But I will say it's a lot like the 4 a.m. crew or the guys that I see Dustin train. Like, there's really no frills. It's like, just come on in and see what we do. Try to hang. Yeah. And if not, you're not going to try to sell it to somebody. You're not going to change who you are at 4 a.m. to cater to somebody's needs. And the same thing with us, like with recruiting. So you're never going to bat 1,000 in recruiting. Right. But I think the more you can own who you are and just say, hey, this is what we do. Come take a look at it. Here's some of our guys. We just had our prospect camp. I always say we don't tell our guys that we don't give them any script to talk to recruits about. Just if they ask you what you think of your experience, just tell them. And then I think what happens, though, is you attract people who, even if they don't quite have it yet, they want to find it.
Right.
And that's where those three kind of buckets you described come in. But I think there has to be a little bit of very transparent. This is our program. This is the 4 a.m. crew. When you train with us, and this is what you get. I'm not going to cater it. Do you see that? Do you want a piece of that? And then come on in and work your tail off and see what happens. But some people will rise to the occasion in that environment. I hope that made some sense.
Yeah.
But I think I see a lot of people get in trouble by trying to sell or to market something different than who they really are.
Yeah.
When it just say, if not, just here's who I am. Do you like it or not? Come on, be a part of it.
But what I like about what he said earlier is that I feel like that rough, tough, 5-on-5, very like Hoosier-ish type of vibe in that sport could really bring out those kids who got that competitiveness, who might just need to up their skill. Like, I feel like you could learn a lot about your kids in that environment.
You can tell what she values, right? You can tell.
Yeah, because I can see it. I can see it in their eyes,
Yeah.
bro.
Well, we play a game, not every pregame because we try to mix it up, but we play a game called Bumpers, and it is no value to what we're going to do the next day in our game. It's a pregame day, so it's the day before. So typically you're doing like lighter stuff or your tactical things to prepare for the opponent, and we'll do some of it, but we always end with this game. And simply all it is whatever the numbers are, we'll manipulate it a little bit, but it's 5-on-5, 6-on-6, first team to 5 wins. First goal, you stay on, and the first team to 5 games that they win, they'll win the day. And the guys love it. I mean, like I think, and this is again maybe just my perception, but I think we've steered away at times from creating a high competitive environment in our practices, and we've almost gave kids an out to say, yeah, I'm just not going to go as hard, as opposed to you can balance it with something where, you know what, like if somebody's walking off and they're pissed about their performance or their teammate gave up a bad play and cost them a loss, like you got to sort that out. Like, and if a guy's a go at you, that's how it is. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And so anyways, it's something that, you know, we can't do the 5-on-5 in the gym at noon at our place, but we can do bumpers.
No, but that's your version of it. That's my point. You have it.
We try to.
That's interesting. But I wonder, you're using that as a pregame situation. What about off-season killer?
Yeah, it's different. I mean, the beauty at Ohio Wesleyan was it's all player-centered. I mean, the coaches don't have any influence on it. So
that makes sense.
We're still kind of finding our way with, you know, how are the players really going to take ownership over the program, and what is that going to look like? You know, if you go to Mike's program, their guys are hitting, fielding, like they're on their stuff. And I don't know how long it took for you to get to the point where you're like, okay, we're really on top of what our process needs to look like.
Are the upperclassmen pulling those guys in to do stuff like that, Mike?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do. I think it's a little bit. It's not Ohio Wesleyan soccer, not Marietta baseball, but there now is an expectation that we are going to at least strive for high level performance. Yeah. And so the older guys kind of know what it looks like, and look, they're not all perfect, right? But it's they know what we're trying to accomplish. They feel a responsibility to those who've come before them. Mm-hmm. You know, they had seniors, upperclassmen that have welcomed them, that have showed them the way, and so they feel a real responsibility to pass that down. But yeah, absolutely, it's older guys that drive it. I always say, guys, like, you know, I'm going to be here for a while, so a lot of this is going to be how you decide to make this season go. Yeah. And I think I can say that with confidence because I know how they want the season to go. At first, when you're getting started, you don't know what their expectations are, so you have to drive a little bit more. But now I'm like, hey, if you know what you know what greatness looks like, you know what it takes. Are you willing?
I was going to say in Dustin's group as an onlooker, right? Especially since we moved here, seeing the kids that are signing Oklahoma, being recruited by Ohio State. We got your boys being recruited by VMI and all
Clarion,
these like huge places. Like, and then you see the numbers that they're putting up, and you see the younger kids. They start to get, oh, this is what, you know. They might not be able to wrestle like Newsome, but they see that dude pulling 565, 580, 565,
565,
weighing 160 pounds, and you're like, oh, that's what that's what Oklahoma looks like.
Well,
that, you know what I mean? I think that's part of then the lineage can go.
That's right.
Well, I think that's something I've done a good job with. We've done a good job with, however you want to look at it. Is I've turned out, probably for the last consistently, definitely the last 7 or 8 years, D1 kids every year. Now it's not just what they're doing in here. They've obviously have had great wrestling careers. They got great coaches. They go to a great, an elite club, things like that. But if you look at all of the kids that have signed to D1 schools over the last 7 or 8 years that come from old school gym, they're always in the best shape in the group. They're always the strongest kids in the group, So I think the other kids can see that and say, all right, this definitely is a piece of the puzzle. And I think coaches know if they get someone that comes from my system, they're going to come in right away, and they're going to be one of the fittest, strongest kids on the team.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where you say a younger kid, you may say, I want to wrestle at Oklahoma or whatever it is. But you're deadlifting 200 pounds, right? So it's just like
you better be really good at wrestling.
Yeah. But no, actually, Now we got Billy who's actually doing this, and here's his numbers and here's his metrics, right? I had a guy recently, he said he had some big ambition. I said, well, okay, now what's the 60-yard dash time of an elite player?
There you
okay,
go.
are you there? No. What's your some of the metrics? What's the strength look like? So you're not there. So right now, you're hoping you could be that, right? If you start getting your metrics up to that, then now we have a conversation. But I think having those people in your gym that you can say, this is what it looks like. Mm-hmm. Now, do you want to get there? Then it becomes up to them a little bit with the coach guiding the process.
The flip side of that is too, and this hasn't happened too often, but it has happened before. Coach Ralph, who's the recruiting coordinator at Ohio State, him and I are close. We worked together for a couple of years when I was there. But he's reached out to me before about, one of my kids said, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? And I'd say, well, he's soft. Yeah. I said, he won't survive under Tom Ryan. I've had to tell him that before. And would I love every kid that I trained to go to Ohio State, but not all of them would make it. I mean, I've seen what that program's like, and just, if you can't work hard in here for me 3 days a week, you're not going to survive in Tom Ryan's room, twice a day for 4 years. So it just kind of is what it is.
Dustin, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because I think what you just described is like there's almost a sick consistency that you've been able to produce with the guys that are coming out with their strength and fitness and all these other things. Is there a mental piece? Like, do coaches know what they're going to get from your guys? Like a mental toughness mentality piece?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, obviously, to be good in that sport, there has to be a mental toughness aspect of it. I mean, you're fist fighting someone without using your fists, so you have to be a tough individual to be good at it. But yeah, I think any college coach knows when they get someone that comes from here that they're going to be tough kids that know how to work hard. Because a lot of training, especially when it comes to conditioning and just being able to fight through positions in a wrestling, that comes down to, are you willing to be uncomfortable and keep moving?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's definitely so. I think parents know that too. That they got a kid that maybe they think their kid needs to get a little bit more hard-nosed. They know they can bring him here, and I can help fix that. And I don't think that I fix it by, being a drill sergeant or yelling at them or whatever. I try to lead by example and put them in an environment where they can look at the kids like Dylan Newsome that have really thrived here and kind of try to follow their example. And, the more we can, get them to get these little wins where they, get in these situations that feel really tough, and then they get on the other side and they survive it, then they kind of understand when those situations arise again in the practice room or whatever, that if they just kind of hang in there and, 1 foot in front of the other, that it's going to be okay on the other side.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
I think from when I think about this, because I don't have a lot of younger athletes, I just started working with some baseball players because of my son. It's been a blast. But a lot of my recommendations comes from some of these grown-ups I got, right? That people will be like, what kind of basically I can speak on the consistency. And I think that's like a huge, so when people come to me about, hey, I'm about to hire, or can I use you as a reference, G? And when people call me, say, I think all you need to know is I've seen this guy 5 days a week at 4 a.m. for 6 years. So, you know what I mean?
I'll bet on him.
If he can show up for that, he's going to do good at work.
So my
whatever.
point is, most of the people in this room that work with us went through, that's our AAA. Like they came through that, and I've been able to see that, because if you're a killer like that, I feel like you can learn a skill. Mm-hmm. We can figure it out if I can actually count on you and I can see you in the gym and the way you operate. And so from like that standpoint, I always feel good when I can give that recommendation, or I've been able to give, hey, this motherfucker crumbled.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't made at 4. Now maybe he can show up at 7 or 8. I don't know, but you know, in my experience, this dude's a killer. This dude ain't a killer, and I've been able to recommend that, like in the you know, just in the world, I guess.
I get that. You know, for us, you know, I always say the best job recommendation I can give is just hire him.
Yeah.
Just hire. I don't like what are his greatest strength or her. I'm just telling you, hire him. Like the figure, like they come.
If I had a spot, I'd hire him.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I always say.
But I think that is earned through.
Yeah.
I think people want, you know, a lot of times when kids ask for a recommendation, it's like, you got 4 years of a body of work here. Like you can't turn. Like I know who you are a little bit now, right? And that's from consistency. That's from showing up every day. That's from pushing through some adversity and some resilience. But that's your resume, right? And so it is so fun for me. I'm like, I don't hire him, but he'll make you better. Like just get him on board with you.
Right.
Joe way. Back to you, buddy.
Yeah, so I want to take it back a little bit to a time where you might have been kind of vulnerable. So when you left Ohio Wesleyan, you're used to these championships, and then you go to Case Western, which is a great school in itself. Were there ever times that you were like, all right, I'm the man now. What do I want to take? What am I afraid of? How am I going to get us to that level? Because obviously you wanted to continue to grow, and you want to prove people that you're the guy, right? So were you vulnerable, or were you always confident that you were just going to figure it out?
No, I still haven't figured it out. And, you know, I think part of the drive, for me at least, is the feeling that, you know, in the grand scheme of things, we still haven't done anything. You know, we had one good week last year where we beat 2 teams in a conference tournament and got an automatic bid. But, like, you know, that shouldn't define our program now. And we still haven't done anything, certainly. But at the time, what drove me was probably that little bit of insecurity, you know, like I was walking into a place at Case Western Reserve, and just for context, we're in that league that they're in is the University Athletic Association. So think about it in if you're thinking about like the ACC or something, we were Boston College, I guess. Like nothing, there wasn't anything at the time that institutionally that had us above and beyond some of the other places like Emory down in Atlanta or University of Chicago or WashU in St. Louis or Carnegie Mellon. So we always had to be kind of the little engine that could. And for me, I really tried to have that be the badge of honor for myself, but also for the program, and it was hard. I mean, because you see, it's hard not to like see the recruiting services and see the guys that these other programs are getting, and then at some point a light bulb went off for me, and I was just like, well, Chicago's the 3rd best school in the world. They should get those kids, and we're always going to give them a damn good game, and we did, and we beat them when they were number 1 in the country. We tied them a couple of different times. Like we always punched above our weight, but to say like, did we have it figured out right away? Like. Definitely not. And I always tried to put my hand up if I wasn't doing it the way that I felt like I could do it best. And so I didn't want to just shield that from the players either. Like last Wednesday, I told Coach this, like we played Mount Union. It's probably the worst game I've coached in 5 years. And I told the guys that. And it wasn't good enough. I didn't respond to adversity well. Like I didn't, whatever. And all I said to them was, I want to be better. I want you guys to be better. I want myself to be better. And when we have adversity, I hope we can grow. And I don't know if we've done anything right in the last week, but in the last week we were down 1-0 at halftime in both games, and we came back to win 2-1. And I think if nothing else, what we try to do is just give them some confidence and get them to play really hard. And like that's 90% of it. And then if we somehow make some adjustment tactically, like maybe that helps. But if the guys like just believe in each other and work as hard as they possibly can, that covers up a lot.
It's good. Mike, you got anything to wrap it up, buddy?
No, I'm good, man. I appreciate you coming on.
That's awesome.
Anything for us? Anything that you got? Just want to. I know you asked Dee a question. Anything
Well, yeah, and you listen to the show, so yeah, shoot.
I mean, I love your guys' work. I throw it in when I'm mowing the lawn and stuff. I know you said you don't mow the lawn anymore because whatever.
he has been listening.
I have.
Yeah. I never mow the lawn ever.
It's my therapy. But Yeah, I guess the thing I'm thinking about now with kids and everything else, and it seems like everybody's kind of doing it. Sorry, tread away. I'm sure you'll get there in a second. But, like, how do you guys find balance? What's balance look like for you? And it's, like Coach talks about work-life integration. Kind of that's where my mindset is. But, like, I don't think we ever switch it off. But is there something you do that just really helps kind of keep things?
Move the gym closer to your house. That's honestly created a ton of balance for me, because now – closer to home, I can dip home if I need to. The kids now are old enough that they're part of the gym from time to time, so I see them more. It just I think the integration of just like everything under one roof for me especially, and being closer to home has helped me an absolute ton. And man, I just say no a lot if it ain't in my scheme of how I see my life. Like, I'm not, I learned this in the MP days, like, yes isn't always the answer. I said no way more than yes, because the reality is, like, it has to be an astronomical opportunity to really change my life a ton. And what it's probably going to do is take away from what I'm trying to do, which is have it kind of in line, because it's never going to be all the way in line. Right. I'm a psycho. I already know that about myself. But I think that I used to try to think that there was a picture of that, and I don't know that really exists when your hobby and your job is the same in your lifestyle, right? But I will tell you, as a dad that's on social media, which Dustin runs into this already too, on social media, and one of the top performers of what I do, I believe that about myself. It's like, it's hard because your kids don't want to listen to you no matter what you're good at. So intermixing other kids with your kids to coach them, what is probably one of the best advices. I don't know if somebody gave it to me or I figured it out, but like, Dustin trains my youngest and his son once a week, then I train him once a week. Like, intermixing them with other kids. My oldest, I got a ton out of him. He's I think in the third bucket when you talked about he loves playing for the guys, like for his team. Like, he'll study spin rates, he'll put the work in, but the thing he always talks about is that, like, Dad, because I think he could play at another level potentially. He's doing right through 2 no-hitters last year. Like, he got game, but he always comes back to that. And so I was having a hard. So that's when you said that, I was like, that's what I keep hearing from him. And it's like, he's like, I'm doing all this for those guys, which is a great teammate.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
you need
it's
those
like,
kids.
You need those kids. So and he's outperformed probably what everyone expected. A lot of it's from that bucket, though. That's why when you said that, I was like, oh, okay, this is making some sense. So anyway, you offered a lot of great perspective and stuff today. So we appreciate you having on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So real quick, I'll just give you kind of something I've been trying to work on with myself, being a dad, and obviously intermixing, the kids and the family into your business and your passion, your coaching career as much as possible is kind of the obvious answer. And, I think what I've been doing a good job of that. But the thing I've been really working on lately is trying to go out of my way to do little things for them and have these little moments. And what I mean is, like, we get so caught up in, like, all right, the priority is you got to coach your team, you got to go to work, you got to do all these things. And so these little moments with them that seem kind of inconsequential, you got to remind yourself, like, this might feel like a big deal for them, and I need to go out of my way for a half hour if it only means I get 2 minutes with them. So I'll give you an example. Is this morning, every Wednesday at 6:30, I have a group of guys over, some of my athletes and stuff, and we do fire and ice. We do the sauna exposure. We do a little workout first. But right at 6:30, the guys pull up. We're out there kind of in the dark with the tiki torches, and we're working out before we do our recovery workout. Well, my daughter gets up at 6:30. So normally, like, as I'm going outside is right when her alarm clock is going off and she's getting up. And usually I just make her breakfast on the weekends. But I was like, you know what? I should just make pancakes, have them ready for her. You know what I mean? I'll go up and wake her up 2 minutes early. So that way she can come down. I got the syrup heated up for her, put the pancakes on her, give her a kiss, talk to her for 2 or 3 minutes, and then I go outside and I do my thing. So that, took up a chunk of my morning before she's up, but it was worth it because now I just got that little bit of time with her.
Right.
So sometimes you have to sacrifice this much to get that much. And even if they don't even seem appreciative of it.
Which is always how it is, by the way. That's over-delivery
That's awesome,
dad
man.
right there.
I just to wrap this thought up, I'm going to say something that's maybe a little controversial right now.
Oh!
Not controversial, but I think the balance thing's a little bit overrated.
Yeah.
I don't know. You show me a high performer who's got balance, like complete balance. Like, people lean on that. And I think right now, we talk about athletes being softer now. I think coaches and we're all softer. Like, you're not going to have this perfect balance. I mean, if you do, you're going to have a life of average. That's my take. I mean, to me, it's more cyclical. There's times of the year where my family doesn't come first. Of course, they come first if something happens, but it's busy during baseball. Like I'm going to miss games.
When it's game day, the team is the priority.
That's right. And I'm okay.
That's
with
not
that.
to mean if your kids got sick, you wouldn't.
Thank you for saying that, because people will quickly go there, right? Like, of course.
But no, of course. But when it's game day, the team's the priority. Your job's the priority.
That's it.
There's no way around it.
And I think you can create. I love the moments thing. You can create really powerful moments. Like, I'm not good when I'm home all the time. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to be on my phone.
You said that a lot, and it's made me feel better, Mike.
I'm okay, but I think my family's okay with it too. I'm better when I can come and appreciate them more. So I think there's a little bit of a movement toward this balance piece that I'm okay. I'm okay not.
I got a take for you.
Yeah.
Every kid's going to grow up and not like something about their parents.
That's it.
It's just the way it is. I'm trying to I know what I didn't like, and I've changed those things. I'm trying to have less of that shit that's real deep like that.
Yeah.
It'd just be like, oh, my dad was a fucking maniac lifter that maybe worked a little too much. All right, cool. But he did all these things like Dustin saw. Like, to me, it's like they're going to have something they don't like. It's impossible not to.
And I think they'll like that. I think they'll like that story. Like, my dad was a guy get up at 3 o'clock every day and went in. Or my dad, we'd have people, like, the lights would be coming on and tiki torches.
Yeah.
People,
that's what I'm saying. I'm going to give them these issues. I'm cool with that.
It's a cool story, though. It's a cool,
they'll realize someday.
Yeah.
I tell myself that anyways.
Exactly. All right, Coach's Clinic brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. I'm your boy, Corey G, Coach Mike Deegan, Tyler Treadway, Coach Myers, Coach Bianco. It was great having you on. We are out.